My name is Marcus. I'm 56 years old. And the moment my son called me a loser dad in front of a room full of people, his fiancée, her family, our neighbors, strangers I had paid to serve and entertain, something in me didn't just crack. It folded in on itself, quiet and complete, like the end of a long performance when the lights drop and there's no applause, only silence. It happened at the rehearsal dinner. A warm June evening. I'd rented a converted barn in the Berkshires. Full catering, open bar. A string quartet playing Debussy and Coldplay covers. Lanterns strung from timber beams that smelled like the forest had only recently let them go. Every detail I had handled. Every bill I had paid. Even the napkin rings were custom engraved with the couple's initials. A detail no one noticed, of course, because that's what I did. That's what I've always done. Handled things. Paid for things. Stayed quiet. I was seated at the far end of the head table, next to Kelly, my ex-wife, his mother, who wore a champagne-colored dress that made her look 15 years younger. She hadn't said much to me, just small, obligatory nods between sips of wine. She laughed easily with her husband, Jerry. He was tan, loud, newly retired from something in finance. The kind of man who called waiters by their first names and touched people's backs when he talked. Then Logan stood up. My son. He looked good. Too good. Hair slicked back like he was born into confidence, suit tailored just right. His arm slipped around Claire's waist, his fiancée, and she leaned into him like gravity pulled her there. He raised his glass. First off, he said, I want to thank everyone for being here. Claire and I couldn't have imagined a better night. Smiles. Murmurs of agreement. Clinks of glass. Claire's parents. Thank you for welcoming me like a son. And to my friends, you guys have stuck with me through thick and thin. He kept going. Toasted the officiant, his groomsmen, even the family dog, for always wagging her tail, no matter what. I waited. I was still waiting when he said it. And lastly, to my father, Marcus, thank you for knowing how to stay quiet and just pay. A real loser, but a reliable sponsor. A few people chuckled. Uncertain. The kind of laugh you give when you don't know if it's a joke. His fiancée smirked. Claire's father leaned over and whispered something in her ear, and she shook her head like she couldn't believe how lucky she was to have such a funny man. Kelly didn't move. Her eyes stayed on her wineglass. She didn't look at me, not once. And me? I raised my glass. To dignity, I said. My voice didn't shake, not even a little. Then I stood and walked out before dessert was served. That toast, that one line, rewrote the last 2 decades of my life in a single breath. It's funny how it works like that. One moment can unravel everything. I'd given him 20 years of sacrifice, and in a sentence, he turned it all into a punchline. He used the truth that I had funded everything, as a wee *p*n. But worse than the insult was the tone he used. Casual, unashamed, like the audience would be in on the joke with him. Like I wasn't even in the room. But I was. I was the reason that room even existed. After all, Logan wasn't born with much. He was 7 when Kelly left. Took a lover from her yoga studio and decided she needed time to find herself. She left the house, left the dog, left Logan, and I stayed. I took care of the bills, the routines, the meals, the grief. He wouldn't eat vegetables unless I called them dinosaur leaves. He cried when I tried to cut his hair myself. He used to fall asleep on the couch watching reruns of Mythbusters, his hand curled into mine like I was the last solid thing in the world. When he was 10, he started calling me Dad, on his own. No prompting. Just said it one night while I was helping him with a math worksheet, as casual as you'd say the weather was nice. And I thought, I've made it. I told myself, love wins. Time wins. Patience pays off. So I did more. Worked longer hours. Took freelance jobs I didn't want. Skipped vacations. Said no to dating, to drinking, to rest. Everything I had went into making sure Logan never felt the weight of what Kelly had done. I was going to give him the world so he'd never know what it felt like to be abandoned. But when Kelly reappeared, 7 years later, married to a man with a boat and a lake house, everything shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't Dad anymore. I was Marcus, the wallet. I'd show up to school conferences and find out she'd been there earlier with Jerry. The teachers would give me summaries, not stories. Logan started spending every other weekend at their house. Then entire summers. He came back sunburned and smug, calling me tight and paranoid because I asked where he'd been. When he turned 16, I gave him a used Honda. Paid cash. Cleaned it. Changed the oil myself. He barely said thank you. Jerry bought him a pair of Beats headphones and took him to a Celtics game. Logan posted a picture with the caption, "Best day ever with my real ones." That one stung. But I didn't say anything. I just worked harder. He needed braces, I paid. College prep courses, I paid. Therapy when he went through a breakup, I paid. Everything he needed, I found a way to provide. Even when he started pulling away. Even when he stopped answering my calls right away. Even when he forgot Father's Day 3 years in a row. Because that's what you do, right? You don't walk away. You don't keep score. You show up. But that night, when he called me a loser in a toast, that's when I realized I'd been playing the wrong game. I thought I was building love. I was just subsidizing indifference. And no one said a word in my defense. Not Kelly. Not her husband. Not Claire. Not even Logan himself, who clinked glasses and moved on like nothing had happened. I drove home alone that night, slow, quiet, hands clenched around the steering wheel. And I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't need to, because something in me had gone still. Not dead, just done. Logan had finally said the part out loud we'd all been pretending wasn't true. He didn't love me. He tolerated me. And he was only as loyal as the checks I wrote. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with a glass of scotch that tasted like silence. Just stared at the walls. There were pictures of Logan on the mantle, graduation basketball team photo, the two of us at a Red Sox game. I picked one up. His smile was wide, crooked front teeth before braces. My arm was wrapped around him like I believed it meant something permanent. I put the frame face down, one by one. At 2:14 a.m. my phone buzzed. A message from Logan. "You overreacted. Just keep supporting and stay out of it. You were never more than a wallet anyway." No punctuation. No hesitation. Just the raw, ugly truth, or maybe not truth. Just what he believed in that moment, unfiltered by shame. I read it twice, and then I stood up, walked into my office, and opened my laptop. No hesitation, no emotion. Just years of restraint lifting like fog. First, the credit card tied to his rent frozen. Then the auto pay for his car insurance canceled. The tuition account that fed directly to the university's portal wiped clean. I drafted a reply. "Got it. I'm done sponsoring. And don't worry, I won't interfere again." Then I called the bank. Asked them to remove my name as cosigner on his apartment lease. Took an hour. I stayed on hold, quiet and still. The agent said it would be difficult but not impossible. I told her to start the process anyway. I didn't care if it took weeks. The next call was to the university. Financial aid office. I informed them that I would no longer be responsible for Logan's tuition. I asked if any refund could be sent directly back to the payer. They said it would be reviewed. By morning, I'd also emailed my attorney. Subject line: "Will revision urgent." We had a meeting scheduled by noon. I wasn't angry. Not the way people assume. I was clear. For 20 years, I had mistaken dependency for connection. I thought providing meant I was needed. But need without respect is just quiet exploitation. And Logan had finally done me the favor of spelling it out. He didn't love me. He loved the function I performed. And now the function was offline. 2 days later, Kelly called. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail. Tight voice, rehearsed calm. Logan's confused. He says his tuition was canceled. I told him it had to be a mistake. Call me back. I didn't call. Then came the group text. From Logan. To me and Kelly. No greeting. So dramatic. I knew you'd pull this. "Mom, can you talk to him? Jerry says this is ridiculous." Jerry. That was the next piece. That's when I knew they'd already moved on. Because Jerry stepped in quickly. Logan started posting photos, steak dinners with Kelly and Jerry, wine tastings, tennis lessons. Family night, the captions read. One showed him in a new blazer, smiling beside Jerry, who stood tall with his hand proudly on Logan's shoulder. "This is what real support looks like," Logan had written. No mention of me. They were playing the same old trick, replacing emotional labor with optics. Jerry was the new favorite now, because that's how Logan worked. Loyalty followed convenience. But then the shine started to fade. 3 weeks after I pulled the plug, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. Voicemail. "Dad, it's Logan. I just found out Jerry won't co-sign my student loans. Says he doesn't believe in paying for grown men. Mom says we'll figure it out, but I think she's stalling. Can you just call me back?" I didn't, because by then I knew the difference between a need and a manipulation. Jerry had no intention of being a real provider. He played the part. Photos, smiles, dinners. But when the bills showed up, he vanished behind polite refusals. Logan should take responsibility. College debt builds character. He needs to grow up. That's what Kelly told him. "Pick up extra shifts," she said. "Lots of kids work through school." Logan had never worked a real job longer than a summer. Not because he was lazy, but because I never made him. That was my mistake. I had protected him from reality so thoroughly that when it finally reached him, it hit like a hurricane. Within a month, I got a second call. His tone was different this time. "They dropped me from 2 classes. The payments didn't go through. I thought Mom took care of it, but she says it's not her problem. Jerry says I should pause school and rethink my future. This is messed up." Still, I didn't answer, because he hadn't called me Dad since the toast. Instead, he had addressed me as an ATM with feelings, a tool that had outlived its use. And now the machine was out of order. Then came the spiral. His landlord called the emergency number on file. Still me, somehow. Said Logan was behind on rent. That the next month would be eviction. I told the landlord to remove my name from all communication. That any legal responsibility ended the day Logan said I wasn't a father, just a sponsor. They understood. I heard Logan was sleeping on couches after that. A friend's apartment for a week. Then back to Kelly's. But that wasn't the victory he imagined either. Her new house wasn't built for extra bodies. Jerry's son from a previous marriage already occupied the spare room. Logan got the fold-out couch. No privacy. No structure. No welcome. Kelly tried to make it work. First. But Jerry made it clear. Logan wasn't his problem. And Kelly? She caved. "Just stay out of our way," she told him one night. I know because he sent me a *T. A text from her to him. Her words, not mine. "Just stay out of our way." The woman who once told me Logan was the center of her universe had demoted him to a burden. He sent me a message after that. "I don't know what to do. I feel like I don't belong anywhere." I read it, didn't answer, because the truth is, I had felt that way for years. And no one listened then. It was strange, watching it all unfold, like watching a structure collapse from a distance, knowing you'd already evacuated. Safe, clean, free. Kelly tried calling again. Said Logan was having a hard time. Said I should be the bigger man. But I had already been the bigger man for 2 decades. And all it had earned me was mockery in a speech, and silence from the people I fed, clothed, and educated. No more. There's a cruelty in reality. But there's also clarity. When someone tells you what you are to them, believe them. Logan told me I was a wallet. Now he's learning what happens when the wallet closes. No more rent. No more school. No more silence bought with checks and wires and sleepless nights. Because a sponsor expects return on investment. And I was done investing in contempt. The collapse didn't happen all at once. Not with explosions or drama. It happened the way most real things do. Slow, cruel, inevitable. A series of events that piled until the weight crushed him. 3 weeks after I froze his tuition, Logan was dropped from enrollment. Not warned, dropped. No payment, no classes, no access to the portal. He hadn't told anyone. Not Kelly. Not Jerry. He just packed up quietly and came home. Except home was no longer mine. He went to Kelly's. Jerry greeted him at the door with a raised eyebrow and a forced smile. Logan brought 3 bags and a bruised ego. He didn't speak much that first night, according to Kelly's email. Just dropped his stuff in the hallway and asked which room was his. There wasn't one. Jerry's son had already claimed the guest room. A college dropout with a YouTube channel and too many shoes. The room was full. The couch was empty. Jerry made the decision before Kelly could speak. He can stay in the den. For now. No desk. No door. No privacy. Logan texted me a photo of the fold-out mattress, still half collapsed, crammed between a dusty treadmill and a bookshelf full of self-help titles. This is where I ended up. I didn't reply, because that was the first time he wasn't demanding, just informing. He was sending evidence. A subtle attempt at guilt. It didn't work. The next week, his credit card was declined at a grocery store. The card had always been in my name. I got the alert on my phone. $112. 37 declined at checkout. 5 minutes later, a call. Hey, just saw my card's not working. I think there's some kind of issue? No issue, I said. I shut it off. You what? It's gone. Like you said, I was just a wallet, remember? He sighed. That long, tired sigh kids give when they think you're being dramatic. Okay, I get it. I said some dumb things, all right? Can we stop acting like I murdered someone? I hung up. He tried calling back. I didn't answer, because every word he said just made it worse. As if what he called me was a joke that had gone too far. As if all I needed was an apology to reboot the system and start wiring money again. But I wasn't a system anymore. I was a man, and I was done being used. Then came the eviction notice. Kelly forwarded it with a subject line that read, "Please." Attached was a scanned letter from Logan's old landlord. He owed $1,200 in back rent. The lease had defaulted, and since I had successfully removed myself from it, the responsibility fell squarely on Logan. The final paragraph read, "If balance is not paid within 14 days, legal action may be pursued." Kelly's email was brief. "I know you're hurt, but he's drowning. Maybe just this once?" I didn't reply, because she never asked when he called me a loser, never stood up during the toast, never pulled him aside to say, "That man raised you." But now that the house of cards was on fire, she remembered who used to carry the hose. Another week passed. Logan found a job at a cafe 2 blocks from Kelly's house. He texted me, "Barista, $15 an hour. Never thought I'd be doing this at 25. I stared at the message. 25. That's how old I was when I took him in full-time. Kelly had walked out, and I was the one left holding a child and a mortgage. At 25, I worked 2 jobs. Managed logistics at a warehouse by day and ran deliveries for a printing company at night. Slept 4 hours a night. Never complained. Never asked anyone for a dime. I didn't reply, because I knew he was trying to get sympathy. That message wasn't a confession, it was bait. But I wasn't hungry anymore. I started getting mail addressed to him. Collections. Medical bills. Parking ticket. I scanned the envelopes, took photos, and dropped them in the trash. Then I emailed the senders. Wrong address. Return to sender. Kelly called again. I let it go to voicemail. You're making your point. We get it. But how far does this go? You're just gonna let him crash and burn? Yes. That was the answer. Because the truth was, he had been crashing for years. I had just padded the fall every time. Now he was finally feeling what the world feels like without someone covering for you. Without insulation. Without comfort. He applied for reinstatement at the university. Got rejected. No payment, no plan, no appeal. They suggested he try community college next semester, if he could afford it. Claire was gone by then. She had tried to stick it out, but Logan couldn't fake stability. Couldn't pay for dates. Couldn't pretend he was the man she said yes to. She posted a new photo, her at a vineyard with a different guy. The caption said, "Some people build, others drain. Choose wisely." Logan unfollowed her the same day. He sent me a message that night. I was wrong. About all of it. You were always there. I didn't understand what being a father meant. You weren't a sponsor. You were the foundation. I ruined it. I know that now. I read it twice. Then I locked my phone and went for a walk, because sometimes silence is the only answer. He wanted freedom from the overbearing dad. He got it. But freedom without support is just a fall. And he fell hard. I imagined him in that cafe, wiping down counters, trying to salvage his pride as customers ordered oat milk lattes and ignored the tremble in his hands. I pictured the long nights on the fold-out couch, trying to sleep while Jerry's son played video games with the volume too high. I pictured him staring at a bank account with $47 in it, wondering where the next rent check would come from. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt peace, because the weight was no longer mine. For 2 decades, I carried a child who turned into a man who refused to carry himself. I don't hate him. I want to be clear about that. Hate is easy. Hate is noise. What I feel now is quieter than hate. It's the sound of letting go. He may recover. He may not. That's his burden to lift now, not mine. And Kelly? She'll call again. She always does. But I've learned something she never will. Silence is a boundary, not a punishment. And I owe myself that much. Now I live in Savannah, Georgia. It's warm most of the year. Quiet. The air doesn't feel heavy like it used to in Massachusetts. I wake up early, before the sun breaks, and walk barefoot across the pinewood floors of my small cottage just outside the historic district. There's a porch, rocking chair, birdsong. I've made peace with smaller things. Peace was never grand, it was just absent. Absent noise, absent manipulation, absent weight. I work at a woodshop 5 blocks from my house. The small, family-run. The kind of place where the dust smells like cedar and no one asks too many questions. I build things with my hands now. Tables, chairs, bed frames. Sometimes commission pieces, a child's toy chest, an armoire for a newlywed couple. I like those jobs. They remind me that things can be built right the first time, if you take your time. If you measure and cut and never lie to the grain. The woman I see now, her name's Emily. No kids. Divorced young. Runs a flower shop 2 streets over. She brings me lunch sometimes. Roast chicken in wax paper. Lemonade in mason jars. We don't talk much about the past. She knows mine is a map full of borders and silence. That's enough. She once asked if I had children. I told her the truth. I raised a son who wasn't mine. Paid for everything. Then he called me a loser in front of 100 people. She blinked. Didn't look away. Just nodded, as if she'd heard worse. Maybe she had. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She said, "That must have been lonely." And I realized that was the first time anyone named it. Not failure. Not regret. Loneliness. Because that's what it really was. Years of making breakfast for someone who never said thank you. Years of showing up for a woman who never defended me. Years of handing over my soul to a family that only ever asked for more. And now they don't need me anymore. Not Logan. Not Kelly. Not the new husband with his perfect teeth and quiet contempt. They've learned to lean on each other, or at least to pretend they can. I don't follow them online. I don't ask around. The silence between us is deep enough to stand on. Occasionally I get an email. From Kelly, never Logan. Subject lines like, "Just checking in. Thought you might want to know. Logan's been struggling again." They always end the same way. "He could really use your help." But I don't reply, because help without respect is just servitude. And I don't fund people who call me a loser. I didn't lose. I walked away from a game that was rigged. I withdrew from a contract no one ever signed, but everyone expected me to honor. That's the part people don't understand. They say, "But you raised him." Yes, I did. But raising someone doesn't make you invincible. It doesn't make you unbreakable. And it certainly doesn't make you obligated to endure humiliation in silence. I gave him everything I had, and when it came time to stand up for me, he chose applause over acknowledgement. A room full of strangers over the man who kept the lights on. Some people say forgiveness is strength. Maybe. But sometimes forgiveness is just another leash. And I've spent too many years with a collar around my neck. I've seen what regret looks like. Comes in letters, in voicemails, in desperate texts sent after midnight. But regret doesn't fix silence. It doesn't rebuild what you shattered just to get a laugh or a pat on the back. Regret is cheap. Respect costs. Logan spent all my respect like spare change. Now the account's closed. Sometimes I dream about him. Not the man he is now, the boy he used to be. 7 years old, missing a front tooth, running down the hallway in dinosaur pajamas. He used to wait by the window when I came home late. Said he couldn't sleep until he saw my truck pull in. I dream of those nights, and I wake up in Savannah, surrounded by peace, and remind myself, that boy is gone, and the man he became never said thank you. Some things die without ceremony. Some fathers bury their title without a funeral. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sad. I'm just done. There's freedom in that. Not the loud kind. Not fireworks and declarations. Just the quiet kind that lets you breathe again. I spend my days sanding oak and ash, carving initials into the underside of tabletops where no one will ever see. Proof I was here, that I built something, that I left a mark. Not for Logan, not for Kelly, not for anyone who watched me burn and stayed silent. For me. Emily asked once if I'd ever reconcile with them. I shook my head. Why? She asked. And I said, because I was loyal. They were opportunistic. And I don't fix things that were broken on purpose. She didn't ask again. She brings me lunch. I bring her tulips. We leave it at that. And still the world turns. Kelly will keep calling. Logan might come back someday older, broke, wiser. Or he might not. It doesn't matter. Because I'm not waiting. I'm not hoping. I'm not financing a single second more of someone else's disregard. I raised my glass that night and said, to dignity. No one understood. Now they do. Because when the ATM shut down, so did the illusion. Now they know who I was. Not a loser. Provider. A shield. And when the shield dropped, they finally saw the battlefield they created, and had to walk it without me. So tell me this, when your own son laughs at your sacrifice, when your ex-wife smiles through your humiliation, when your love becomes leverage, and your silence becomes currency, what would you have done? Would you have kept paying? Would you have smiled through the mockery? Or would you have finally drawn the line? You tell me, was I wrong? Or was I just the first one to stop pretending that love, without respect, is worth anything at all?